Good evening, my viewer. Praise the name of the Lord. I trust that you're well wherever you are watching us from. And thank you so much for always keeping it PrayerCaveTV. Thank you for your feedbacks that are always coming in. And I'm so delighted that you're always enjoying our programs. And we bless God for that. Thank you so much. My name is Maureen Boyani and welcome to Youth Nation. Today, as you know, we always come here and discuss issues that are affecting the young people. Na hapa tuna make sure to come up na solution. If not, a way to navigate through it and just to help you that is watching us tonight. And today we want to talk about trauma. We know inikitu most of us, if not all of us, have gone through, and somehow who in affect the way we make decisions, the way we do things. And today we want to really understand what is trauma. How do we overcome it? And does it even have symptoms? Do you look at someone and just tell who you are, this is trauma? So we want to understand all of that. And I'm so delighted and happy that we have our guests today on studio. And they're going to introduce themselves and we're going to get to know them better even as we proceed. Karibuni sana.
Asante.
I'll start with my far left.
Wow. Unajua ile swali yenye unaulizwa in every interview, job interview, that is the hardest to answer. Is tell me about yourself.
I know.
I am Kamande Esther. I am first and foremost very born again. Very born again.
Amen.
Very addicted to Jesus.
Amen.
He's my personal Lord and Savior, and he's the reason I am where I am today.
Amen.
Professionally, I work in communication and media. I am a communications consultant. But for the sake of this, our time together today, I am an author, a published author of one book, one of many books. Amen.
Amen to that.
And I'm also a Christian content creator.
Amen.
Under the name Mondays with Kamande on YouTube, on a blog as well. And it's such an honor to be here today.
We're so delighted to have you. Karibu sana.
I'm Cindy Mutuku. I'm born again. I'm married. And today I'm going to be sitting here in the capacity of a counseling psychologist. Other than that, I wear many hats. And I'm also a Christian blogger. Thank you, Maureen, for having us today.
Thank you so much. As you have heard, we are going to get help today. So maybe we can just start with you, Kamande. What experience have you got that has brought trauma or a traumatic situation that you've gone through?
How much time do we have?
As much time
as
as you need.
My experience with trauma is not one. It's not an easy thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Partly because most of us, it's easy to talk about an experience when the people involved in that experience are not really around, or they're people that are not in your life. But for me, my experience with trauma is really hard and difficult to talk about because it's something that it's family based. It's childhood trauma. So what I talk about when it comes to trauma is my childhood upbringing and experience. And the disadvantage of childhood trauma is that it does not manifest, or it does not show up, and it does not affect you knowingly. You're not affected by it knowingly as a child. It comes later on. It bites you later on as an adult. And my awakening moment was in 2016.
Okay.
I had such a terrible year. 2016 was such a bad year for me, emotionally, relationally. I think the only thing in 2016 that was working for me at that time was my career, where I worked, or what I did for a living at that time.
Yeah.
So when it comes to career, that was the only thing that was working at that time. But my friendships were struggling, my relationships were struggling, my spiritual walk with God was struggling. And it took a very nasty heartbreak for me to come to this moment where you're like, na by the way, shida yangu inakuanga nini? Because now you get to a place where you realize your life is like every issue that you're dealing with looks like a pattern, and it looks like a cycle. So you feel like it's like you're in a roller coaster, or how do we say that? Akale kapanya kana zungukanga. What is it called, dog? Kale. But you get my point. So you feel life feels like you're in that hamster just on a wheel, and you're not moving, and you're not. So it's a different. It's the same experience that you're living, but with different characters. And for me, that heartbreak is what triggered me to now get to a place of questioning myself and asking myself, so whether shida yako Esther, shida yako ni gani specifically? And that's when now I started unraveling and discovering so many of the issues that I was dealing with as an adult were because of childhood trauma I had experienced. I grew up in a very in a violent home, and one of the things I've come to learn right now, even with my book, because my book is based on that, is that most of us, a lot of us actually, grew up in dysfunctional families.
Which is true.
And mine was a dysfunctional family. I had, my dad was, let me use was. My dad was very violent. He was the kind who, unasikia amekuja, and you just run away. Like amekuja, whether you are eating or watching, unasikia tu ni yeye amekuja, and I don't know, unajipata tu umelala. And to date, I am a light sleeper. I like kitu kidogo tu hivi inaweza fanya niamke, and it's because of that. It's because angekuja and you might have gone to bed early, but because of violence and the abuse, chapa mom and commotion in the house, so you unajipata tu umeamka. And because you're a young child, there's nothing much you can do. Uwezi amka kwenda Bruce Lee could defend mom. And the flip side of that was how the abuse would trickle down to the kids. So my brother died, and it was so bad because ushaifika mahali unaomba unaambia Mungu baadaye, it's either umchukue ama sisi tumsindikize akuje, because of the pain and the bitterness. So growing up looking at that and growing up in such an environment, you get it happens so frequently. It happened a lot. So you normalize it. You feel like it's ni kawaida. And then when you're playing outside with your friends and neighbors' kids, and then we grew up in like the suburbs or Runda, grew up in an estate called Pondamali, somewhere in Nakuru. So you mko in an estate in a kwa ploti. So leo ni kwenye kuna kelele, and then kesho ni kwa kina nani kuna kelele, or in one night like 3 homes, like the moms are being abused, are being beaten, or it's the kids. So hakuna siku kuna kosa drama. And so you grow up in such an environment, and it becomes what you know is normal. And you go to school and mnacheka hizo story like wacha niambie jana and your friends are saying, and your friends are also giving you the experiences ati ulichapwa kwa nini, si tulipatwa kama tujalala tukachapwa. Haya mwingine alikuja amelewa, alikuwa anataka pesa zaidi, akachapa. So it becomes like unaona ile time ya break, like badala ya kudiscuss maybe I would have gotten an A. I would have been an A student, but because sasa ile time yenye unafaa kudiscuss masomo ndo mnapeana, and it became so bad like mna try to prove kwa kina nani kulikuwa kumewaka moto. Oh my God. But just disclaimer, my dad is a very good friend of mine right now. But sasa back then, muna try ku wewe hata yini si kitu. Yet kwetu, wow. Skuma ilikuwa na fly, ugali. Oh my God. Tumetoka mbali. So we would compare and bounce off each other. And you see, the challenge is when you're surrounded by people who are going through abuse and people who are also experiencing trauma, there's no way none of you can see it as an issue. So hakuna mtu anajua kuna ni vibaya. So I grew up in that environment. That was what I was exposed to. We moved a lot. Juu sasa mom lazima toroke. Man, inafika mahali you're like, mimi na vifaranga zangu, let's go. So I keep telling my friends how we would move, and before you tell them why you are moving, they're like, you guys were good, mnajibamba. You know, most kids, they move a lot because wazazi wao kazi nini. Sasa is refugee from your home. Kwenda mkienda juu, you know, it's bad. So we moved a lot, and that messes with your mind because you're not used to staying at one place for a long time. You don't settle. So stability and settling is not something I am to date. I am not used to that. I keep feeling, you know, like your mind is telling you, because you're staying here for like a year or 2 years and then you're gone. You go to another place. So for me, that became, it's like a copy. It's life for me. So when I find myself in a place where or like in a situation where it's like you're needed to commit, it's not something I can easily do, and that's an effect of the trauma. And because of that moving a lot, I didn't have the capacity to make friends or long-term friendships. I keep seeing people on social media posting friends they've been with for 7 years or 8 years, and I'm like, hey, nyinyi mlifika hapa aje? Maybe the longest is I have long friendships, but it's now a product of being intentional with them. Kwa sababu again, now for me, what I noticed was, if you're in my life, if you bring an issue kidogo hivi, I'm gone and I leave you, because now I'm used to ukiwa na conflict, you run. Ukiwa na any issue, you run. If you feel like you're not safe, you run. So for me, it started way back. From my childhood, and that spills over as an adult, because now you find, for me, what I learned with my own experience is that you tend to attract, it goes both ways, and Dr. can help us later. You tend to attract either someone who has gone through what you've gone through because it feels familiar for you, and so you're trauma bonding, you're bonding with people who've experienced the same form of trauma, and you either become the one who's the victim of that. So if you experience domestic abuse, you either become the abuser or the one who's receiving the abuse. So for me, I was nilikuwa sasa ndio the abuser, which is bad, and I'm not proud of it. But you find that you're the one and it's because of the need to want to protect my mom. It subconsciously trained me to want to protect and guard myself. And then because you're expectant of receiving abuse, you build muscle and a defense. Zile, before kujuni attack no ni abuse, I'm going to inflict on you. And so it makes you, and you see, when your mind is structured like that, it should work on a positive, because you end up being so analytical of people and of relationships and in situations that you're in, kwa sababu unatafuta gaps to you know, like unatafuta a weak point of this person that you will use to your advantage in case they abuse you. So when you're approaching a relationship, a friendship, you're approaching it from ile perspective, na wewe shida yako ni gani? What's your weakness? What can I use against you so that ukitaka kuni attack ama kuni abuse, I'll use that against you, and I'll use it and I'll do it before you can do it to me. And it's wrong, it's toxic. So in my young adulthood, I found that I was ever in toxic situationships. Let me call them situationships, because this girl was never in a relationship. She was my girlfriend for nothing. It's just situationships, and it's situationships with the wrong kind of people, situationships with people who are very narcissistic, situationships with people who are very also very weak. Just as zingine, because of that trauma and because of what I went through, I became so vengeful. Me, I was out for the kill. Taking one for the team. Kwa wale wote wenye wamepitia abuse, nitawalipishia mwenye napata na yeye napita for wewe utalipia makosa zote zenye we've gone through. So you find that you're also attracted to people who feel weak according to you, because now you're going to inflict pain on them. So when you cause them pain, inakufanya una feel, it makes you feel better. I feel so good when I do that, or when I break someone's heart. I can't believe I'm saying this on national television, but you get my point. It's the effect of that. And so now it got to a place now to bring us back to 2016. Sasa nilijipata ile please don't ask me what that says. My Swahili teacher would be so disappointed in me. But now I was in a situation where you've been running away from maybe committed relationships for a long time, and then you find this person and you're in love. But sasa, because you attract people who are broken just like you, yeye na yeye hataki commitment, na wewe sasa umefika mahali unataka commitment, yeye hataki commitment. So what happens? They vunja your heart. And I remember that time I was still struggling in my walk with God. I grew up, I keep saying, and I've written in my book, that I grew up in church, but I never grew up in God. I did not know who God was. And I looked at God like the way I was looking at my father. And I was very angry at my dad. I was hateful towards my father. And for me, he was never present. So whenever I would look at God, the Bible says he's our father. So I'd look at him with that lens, with a broken lens of fatherhood. So mimi na God kidogo hapana, nitakuja church, nitaenda Sunday school, nitaenda youth camp, I'll serve, tutabeba viti and whatnot, but mimi relationship na wewe, I never did that. And I didn't have that relationship with God. And so now in 2016 is when he's trying to win me over. So I found myself in church, and I was now serving in church. I was in choir at that time. I had joined choir, we were serving sound. So the more you're in church and the more you're serving and being around people, you begin to notice things that are different about you. You begin to see, hey, na mimi nakwanga nimekasirika 24/7, or why am I hateful towards other people? So in just a nutshell, I think I'd say that's my experience in so many words.
Wow. My view, you've heard what exactly trauma does to people. Mostly, as she has said, you attract people like yourself.
You do.
Which is really, really
sad.
Sad. Oh my God. Daktari, maybe we can just start by defining to our viewer tonight, what exactly is trauma?
Trauma, the simplest way I will say trauma is unresolved emotions from a tragic incident. What do I mean? We mostly think that trauma is inbound, but trauma is not. Trauma can be physical, trauma can be emotional, trauma can be psychological. Like I can witness somebody being knocked on by a car on the road, and that is trauma.
It is true.
Rape is trauma. Sexual assault is trauma. Physical assault is trauma. Being choked, or somebody just verbally abusing you constantly every single day, reminding you, calling you. Some of the simplest things would be every day your parent waking up and saying, "Aki we ni mjinga, you're stupid." Somebody keeps saying, "Oh, you're not beautiful." These are things we constantly hear that become trauma to us. And most of the times, it's such a simple incident that will now leave you traumatic, that will leave some emotions in you. You will constantly have some stress in you. That's why we find at sometimes that trauma can also, we find we have the police. To bring it closer, we have police. Police can traumatize you. Police are also going through trauma. You find soldiers who have gone, the KDF, they go through trauma. That's not alone, even the trainings, just going there, Kwan Al-Shabaab, kila saa. Every day they're waking up, they're killing people, they're shooting people. You'll find even sometimes, like currently we are in the maandamano season. So you'll find there are people who are gonna get trauma because of utakunwa na tu mtu alinwa tu mawe, you remembering, oh wow, that what happened. There are people, the tear gas is gonna leave trauma to them, like the children who experience that in the classroom. That is gonna leave some trauma in them. We also find trauma can become so normal to you that it becomes an everyday thing that you rarely realize. So like for the police and the soldiers and all that, it can develop and become PTSD.
Having given us a definition of what trauma is and what we have heard from Esther, are there different types of trauma, and do they vary in effects or what happens?
Definitely. I will say that there are different types of trauma because we have three basically that we know. We have the acute, we have the chronic, and we have the complex. How am I going to differentiate them? The acute is just a single trauma, just a single incident. you were raped. That's acute. Then when we go to chronic, is what now we call prolonged or multiple traumas happening to you. We can have the sexual abuse, we have the physical abuse, and also sometimes it can also go emotionally. And also some of the signs of the acute poverty.
What?
We have poverty. There are people, poverty is a trauma. That's how you find kidogo kidogo. You know the way you used to be told by our parents, hakuna pesa. Hakuna pesa. So you grew up knowing hakuna do. Hakuna do. So you will carry it even forward to your children. You will carry it forward, and every time you will find yourself just realizing, okay, hakuna pesa. You keep telling people hakuna pesa. And it can also go to you becoming a miser or a spendthrift. Now because you didn't receive certain things, now you'll start, when you get your money, you're like, I must buy my wig. You'll spend it, or you'll just become a miser. You know there are people who earn like 500,000, like unashindwa, jamani, where is this money going? Msana katu hooligan. You know, like literally I know of people who stay in Kibera and they have 65-inch plasma TVs. So they are okay, but because they are used to living in that poverty. So we also have physical abuse can also land there. Where, like Esther was saying, every time measure two games, you know, like it becomes such a normal thing, you know. Then when we have what we call the complex, I will also phrase it as generational trauma. Best example is childhood trauma, where you find as a child you experience trauma, and one of the worst things about the complex trauma is because we carry it forward. We pay it forward to other people. So you'll get, as a child, certain things happened to you. You are used to being beaten. You are used to running. At some point, such things just you carry them forward. So as a big person, you start realizing, okay, there's this trauma, because there are certain signs that will be picked up. But just as I had said earlier, trauma doesn't have to be something that happened to you. It can be something that happened to another person, but you are on the receiving end. You received it on the other side. So you're carrying the pain. You're the one who's carrying the problem. So you're the one who's manifesting. You know, you're carrying everything. You're the one with the shoulder. Like you'll find sometimes it becomes such a big deal that you don't even want to associate with people. There are certain things you'll want to run away from because of the trauma that was there in your life.
You've just mentioned about the 3 types.
Yes.
And now maybe we can look at, do they have different symptoms each, or there's a specific symptom? Can you just look at someone and pick out that this is trauma?
Kama katrila kakwa hapa.
Ni kama kusema kwenda hosi madhare na unapika out huyu akona psychosis, so ni mwenda wazimu sana. Sometimes it's hard to do that. But what I would say, for the acute, because it's a single fraction, it's a single incident. Labda uliona mtu amegongwa pale, una panic. Sometimes it starts with a panic attack. I don't know if you've seen people before anything happens, they panic. Out of nothing. But you don't understand what happened to them, but because they have seen something that in our traumatized. Then we have flashbacks. Sometimes this also happens a lot with people who have gone through sexual abuse and rape. They'll have flashbacks of how it happened. If somebody was choking, even the physical abuse, people who are beaten, you will find they have some such signs. They'll keep having flashbacks. The way they were being choked, the way they were being beaten, things like that. We also have irritability. They are just irritable, constantly angry. Mtu hakuna kitu umemfanyia amejam tu. Hakuna mnatembea tu na tu. Somebody is just acting out. To some it also, another sign is substance abuse. There are people who get traumatized and they land into abuse. The abuse is supposed to act as a forget. Best time I would say as a numbing agent, that they are going to numb the pain itaisha, but it doesn't happen. You know, it becomes now unresolved trauma. We also find some people they cut off. They cut off from people. They don't want to engage with people. They don't want to jump around with people. If it's hanging out with friends, they're the first one to say, "Eh, mimi niko na form," but the form ni nini kukaa kwa nyumba, crying, things like that. Sometimes it can be extreme sadness. Sometimes it can also be this person just secluding themselves from that place. Let's say somebody was sexually abused in a particular hotel. They'll avoid the hotel.
True.
Hata kama atakuwa anafanya kitu. Like, I'll give a very good example. Just from what Esther had said. I not really growing up, but as a child, would I even say a child? I was a young lady. I dated this person, and you know, tulikuwa tunaenda, I don't know if you know this place, tulikuwa tunaenda Memphis. It's another form of Altona hapo, It's like a chips joint where you just get chips hapo. You know, like a good date, mwanaume amejikaza. A good date will not even cost you more than 300 shillings. Na hapo ametoka amejipanga. But when things went sideways, I would not enter Memphis. Because every time, even Altona, even Sanford, I cut off. Like, it was a process, you know, such things. So you will associate that trauma, something that happened to you, even a heartbreak, to that place. You can associate it with a certain person, you know. So some of these times, you can also have lack of restful sleep. I always say, you know, you've had a good rest when your mind is sleeping.
Okay.
What do I mean? When you're going to bed and you're not counting all the chickens, you're not counting all your farm, you're not counting all your possessions. Uko hapo umelala, you're not overthinking, your head is just, you're just resting.
That's a sign of trauma, dog.
Yes. So you will find at most of the times it becomes lightful sleep, like Esther said. So you're not resting. Umeenda tu kwa kitanda, uko tu hapo unajekelea tu. You're on edge.
Unangoja.
Yes. Because unapata at any one moment unaza jump ship. You know. Some people also get what we have, that spike. You're talking to somebody, they're okay, amefreeze, ameshtuka tu, because they've had a flashback. They have had that moment of remembering what was going wrong. So I would say those are some of those acute and also chronic. And another best way of finding out, we also use, like, for the children, we also analyze it with the childhood trauma. Most of these things will pick up from people. Most of the childhood trauma, what we call prolonged trauma, does not, generational trauma, I mean, does not show up as a child. It manifests to them as adults. One can be they don't want to keep, like Esther had mentioned in her story, they don't want to keep solid relationships. They are constantly on edge. Like, if you were dumped by someone, you want to dump them fast. Uko like, mi sitazoea uchungu peke yangu. It's coming. Bye. You've just seen it a mile away. But I thank God for those people who can see it a mile away, because I think I've gone through this heartbreak. Hey, one person almost 6 times. You know, na uksipa nazo nasikikama because natokea
inakupata off guard.
So most of these times you'll find, because of the situation at home, they pick up. As Esther had said, somebody can become an abuser without knowing.
True.
So they want to manifest their problems on you. Or because they develop lack of trust. So you will find in every single thing, wanaona distrust. You have just gone with Esther, tumeenda na Esther date kukula. Hapana, ulikuwa na ule mse, because they have been used to eat. The other thing would be they are used to punching, so they become numb. Ukimtetesha yako tu hapo.
Do your worst.
What is the worst that can happen? And sometimes with trauma, it's so interesting. People will act out. Why do I say that? I've seen and I've experienced police. Sorry, policemen, today, forgive me that you're my best
Current
example. Current affairs. They will lash out. Something has gone through their lives. and people will lash out.
Yeah.
People, kitu ya kwanza anaona ni so you know, like I don't know if you've ever seen clips so of a protester anachapwa vizuri and you're like alifanya nini, like akachapwa yote. But it's not such a big thing. Maybe they were just carrying a stone or they were walking, but the person was thoroughly beaten. So you'll find this person is also acting out. They're also acting out. Mwenye anamchapa ni uchungu anataka sasa kuitolea. Yeah. So you will find with trauma, when you're experiencing, you want to inflict it on someone.
Just before we proceed, I just thought, could that be something that happens to parents when they're disciplining their children?
Oh yes.
Yes.
You'll find as a child, like I see memes, I see memes of a red slippers. I don't know if what generation yangu, like you know that red slippers you knew to, or a belt or mwiko, and then you know you're being beaten saizoko na usilie, usilie nyamaza. So even you when as a big person, you will get to realize I can't cry. Crying is wrong. I can't express myself.
My emotions.
So it becomes a problem that unajipata tu. I don't know if you've had people who unasikianga, these people don't cry. Ako tu. Because sometimes alishazoea uchungu ni kukaza. And somehow I also think that's what affects our men. They are taught to kaza, kujikaza maisha. Like that.
Wow.
So I would say disciplining, how you discipline your child will also affect how they grow up and the relationship they're going to have with you as an adult. Because there are sometimes a parent, I don't know if you've been keeping, you've had, but sometimes unasikia mzazi alichapa mtoto juu ya 50 bob.
Yeah,
True.
Sometimes somebody is inflicted serious wounds. So what is that teaching this child? That money was wrong? Or will they receive it as my parent was correcting? Because you see, there's a difference between forcefully beating a child and discipline. And most of the times we say discipline is correction. It's you correcting them. There's this thing we usually say it in psychology. There's an example we are given where a person was feeding a dog. And the person used to ring the bell every time. Ding, 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 ding. Dogi najua, saini saini ya kukula. It's time to eat. So every time that bell was rung, it knew there was food. So one time the person just rang the bell and there was no food. And the dog just came and it started salivating. That means there's a culture that the dog was used to. So with trauma, you will beat this person until they get used to it. They get to know this is normal. You find most abusers were abused.
Yes.
Also men who get abused, now they also become abusers or they share away. So it plays out a role of you need to be cautious as you raise your child. What are you teaching your child? Why? How are they going to grow up? Who are they going to be? Because we always forget this is somebody who's going to be a partner to someone, a husband, a parent. So we'll carry these things. That's why most of the times we say childhood trauma is generational. You want to inflict it on your child. Ulizoea kuchapwa na slippers. Serious. Ile unachapwa na namba endo kalale. Usiniangalie na usicheke. Na nisione machozi. So now you will grow up knowing. That's how you discipline your child.
So you pass
it on. You grow up in a home, your mom is the punching bag. Or your dad is the punching bag. As the generation is proving now, men are becoming punching bags. So the child in that environment will grow up knowing that I'm disciplining this person. This person is not listening into me. Tamchapa. I don't know, there are statistics that were released, I think a month ago or 2 weeks ago, where they were saying there are women in the urban setup who are now accepting to be beaten. And one of the reasons the ladies were giving is, it was my fault.
Oh my.
So how is it? Yes, in layman's language, alinechapa, juu nilitaka kuchapwa. I needed the beating to get the correction. But why? Because they got used to it. It's a trend. It's a generation. Yes.
That is beautiful. My view, you can hear there's so much that we need to learn tonight. And I hope you have your pen and your paper. These are notes that you should not let them slide away. So don't go for so far. We are going to take a very short break. And when we are right back, we are going to carry on this conversation. So keep it PrayerCave TV. Welcome back, my viewer. Thank you so much for always keeping it PrayerCave TV, and we are so delighted that once again tonight you are able to join us on this favorite spot, the Youth Nation, even as we talk matters trauma. Tumesema hizi ni vitu zimetu affect either knowingly and unknowingly, but we don't know, and they affect the decisions we make, how we even relate with others. From Esther's story of had how that affected her relationships, and we want to carry on from there even as we get to understand. Maybe you can just tell us, how did that affect your relationship with people?
I think the greatest disadvantage of trauma is what it does to the people around you. There's a line I like using. Broken people, wounded people bleed on others. And it's very sad if wewe mwenyewe you don't know that you're broken. Wewe mwenyewe you don't know that uko na issues, so you keep breaking other people and projecting and bleeding, quote unquote, for lack of a better phrase, on others. And for the better part of my life, that was my story. That was my experience, bleeding on others, not knowing that I am carrying brokenness from trauma, my traumatic past. And for me, it was so bad because it affects, and most people think trauma will affect you when it comes to relationships. They think, or most of us think, it's only going to affect your romantic relationships. But it's not the case. You find that because you're a product of that trauma, you find that it affects hata your career, relationships in your career, relationships in your like your friendships, in church, if you're going to church. My own experience was, my mom is my best friend from a very young age. She's been a constant source of strength. Hata kama yeye ndo alikuwa the primary recipient of the abuse, she was able to shield us from that manifestation of, because it didn't manifest through her. She didn't carry, the way there's a meme that says generational patterns that are negative have to end with you. You have to be intentional that they end with you. So for me, in my case, those ended with my mom. So in as much as she experienced it, she didn't project and she didn't take it out on us. So she has been our friend from a young age. So what that did to me was, I carried that into my adulthood or into my relationships. I expected female friendships to feel safe. I expected female friendships to be supportive, to be how do I put it, to be solid, just like my relationship with my mom is solid. And what that did was, I let my guard down haraka. When I'd meet a female friend, or when I'm socializing with females, I'd find my trust levels are huko juu. I am so trusting with women, and I'm an only girl kwetu, so I don't have sisters. So when I meet a female, like a lady, I'm like, oh my God, like because I have a good experience with my mom and a female relationship now because of my mom, and I don't have a sister, I'm like, yes, sisterhood.
This is it.
kind of. And the thing is, remember I said earlier on, you attract people who have or carry the same dysfunction and brokenness as you. So I'd attract friends who are with the same issues as me. And now unapata, for some, the abuse was not coming from the dad, it was coming from the mom. And you find that they are now, for them, female friendships don't feel safe. So when I'm coming into the relationship expecting a sisterhood, friendship, laughing, girl chat, playing dress up, them they're coming in zile anataka ku revenge chenye amekuwa kifanyiwa na the mom. So it's unhealthy and healthy coming together. Now, my experience with male relationships, by the growing up, I had so many male friends. One, because I only have brothers, so I am used to friendships with guys. Like, it's so easy. Friendship with guys, it's so easy. Akuna mambo za kumanage emotions. Ati leo ameamka siki kukuongele. Akuna ni kind. And then because unakumbuka unachapo sana, and then because you don't want to go to school kusema ulichapwa na utaki kuonekana waka kanalianga ever, so unakuwa mtough and you don't open up. And I don't know about other women who have male friends, but they don't push you to open up. Guys, mtafika mpige story, football, video games, nini, jokes hapa kule uende home. So exactly, so wewe unabaki suppress, and they made suppressing for me easy because I don't want to talk. So you find that now I related with guys more kwa sababu staki kushinda nikiulizwa. Now girls want details.
Yeah, definitely.
So because I don't want to relieve that trauma, I want to push it to the back of my mind. So staki kuulizwa, so I'd avoid female friendships and then become friends with guys. Because with guys, they're like, utaenda, unless we useme, it's like they don't talk about it. And because after them, they're going through abuse, they won't talk about it from their perspective. So waki suppress, na mina suppress, kaende. So what that did now growing up is, I would find, even in my workplace, because of that anger and that bitterness, I'd find that it's easier for me to submit to a female leader as compared to a male leader. So I'd find ninasikia, like I want to be such an alpha. And most times, most women think they're alpha females because, like there's the healthy alpha, okay, Doc atatuambia if there's a healthy alpha mentality or not. But most of us think like a huge, I want to believe that a huge part that motivates us to feel like you want to be an alpha female is because of that. You want to ngangana with the guys. Juu hutaki kufeel overpowered na hautaki kufeel, you don't want to feel victimized or abused because you went through it. So like I said, you either become that you want to feel, I don't want to be abused, so let me also be an abuser, or you want to, you don't want to be abused, so you are so used to being abused, so you become the victim.
Yes.
So for me, I didn't want to experience that. So I wanted to become, so I grew up with that masculine vibe at my workplace, at a job, you are vocal, na una argue, vitu zenye hata zi make sense. It's like you're challenging your boss. It was hard for me to submit to male leaders. Alafu Mungu ni nani? Mungu ana decide, like God decides every place you're going to work in, there's a male leader, like you're reporting to a male leader. And it's hard, it's hard because nasi makosa yake. So you find that taking corrections was hard. Like unani correct as who? You criticize. And it's some because I'm a writer and I write a lot. So sometimes you find they're just correcting like it's very objective. Ameona venye umeandika, there's a different way too. But because of my unresolved issues, I'm like, this person is looking down on me. They're talking down on me. So that's how I interpret it. After when it comes now to women, you find you're like, mbona huni support? Like when you criticize me, I'm like, why are you not supporting me? My mom supports me, so why are you not supporting me? Why are you challenging me? So it affects how you relate. It really affects how you relate with people. There was something Cindy was saying about how something triggers you. For me, in my romantic relationships, I would never, and I don't think right now I'm still unable to, I cannot gift my significant other a team shippy. I cannot. I can't bring myself to, because kwanza ya leather ya brown. That was the agent of distraction on me. So hata nikiona, the way ukiwa kwa street, there are those Maasais.
They traumatize you.
And the way they have nice quality bells. So the Maasais zungusha nini. So unapatana nao and you're like, hey, baby, inaka quality, but siwezi yaki. It's hard for me to buy such. There's a specific name that I can't, like nikisikia hata wewe ukiniambia that's your surname, I already have a perception. Like unaweza kwa you're so nice to me Maureen, but if your surname is that name, I won't mention it. But if that's your surname, like that name, and it's because that's the last triggering moment for me that now made me realize, okay, anyway, I'm stuck in a cycle, I'm stuck in patterns, and I need now to get over this, and I need to get to the root cause of what's going on. So there is a name that I cannot. My mom keeps laughing because now I have shared with my mom and she's aware of now. Unajua kuna ile trauma mzazi anajua you grew up with. And then sasa kuna ile ingine you go through character development in campus, sijui, as a young adult. So kuna hizo zenye we don't tell our parents, but there's some I've told my mom, and she was like, na sasa what if your future husband that God has destined for you carries that name? Namwambia kidogo itakuwa very hard. Tutaenda kwanza abadilishe jina. But that's not the effect of it. Another effect I found was you either shut down completely or you overshare. Okay. And so I would find that sometimes I would really overshare and expose myself way too early because I'm afraid of being abandoned. And I'm like, this person looks like a really nice person, and now this was now in romantic relationships. You find that you found someone, you're really in love, you're crushing on this person, and because you don't want to feel rejected, you don't want them to reject you, you don't want them to walk away, you find that una try sana ku overshare, you find yourself umeongea sana, umesema a lot about yourself, and it's just the initial stages of the relationship. And what we don't know is that we are ni kama unamfukuza because sasa anakusikiza, you're oversharing, and of course you're not sharing nice things, you're sharing vitu zenye ni negative about you. So anakuangalia anaona huyu ni baggage. Exactly, red flag, anaishia. I've had an instance now, a relationship like that where someone would walk away because sasa ume overshare, and then sasa anaona hii siwezi deal nayo. And then there's another time you're with someone and now because ule alienda because uliongea sana, sasa huyu utaongea. So anaenda because
you're not talking.
She does not open up, she's a closed book. So you're left thinking, so mnatakanga, you know, what do you want? The worst experience that now led me to now this version of myself was meeting someone who is from also a broken life, and then they are coming to fish for information from you, and they're listening to you and taking notes because they want to use that against you, and they want to use it like that. So because vile nilikuwa nasema, you want to protect yourself. Your defense mechanism looks like protecting yourself so that you're not abused. So you find there are people who, like I was saying, they find things about you that they can use to keep you to them. Juu hataki hata yeye umuache. So to feel that sense of control, to feel hataki they don't want to lose you, but they don't have a healthy way of relating with you. So now they're using things about you that you've told them to abuse you. So unapata, so ulikuwa unachapango ukiwa mtoto, okay, ulikuwa unaongelesha ngo vibaya in a condescending way. So they would do that. And it was so bad. I remember I was telling Cindy at one point in our many chats, how ni juzi tu ndo nimeanza like putting on red lipstick. It was as basic as that. That's what trauma does. Trauma now subjects you to people who will, like in your young, if you don't deal with it, like for me now it's the prolonged childhood that you're talking about. So if you don't deal with it and then now you're in relationships, you find that it's happening to you, just that it's a different person doing it to you. So when you were growing up, it was a parent or a relative. So now as a young adult, it's someone that you're dating, it's a friend that you have, and then now they are doing it to you. So you find that like I'd put on red lipstick, and then sasa unaulizwa, hey, sasa unaonekana poa. You know, like malizana na the red lipstick, ebu tutaongea ama tunaenda mahali don't do nini. And it's not that you look bad in it, absolutely not. You look amazing in it, but because maybe at one point in time you wore red lipstick and you were complimented, or you wore a certain color and you were complimented, so they turn that against you. I remember to date I cannot take rides from people because I trusted someone. And then a traumatic experience happened to me because I was given a ride by someone. And you see, venye unasemanga, uni rafiki yangu, atakudrop mahali. So it was a friend's friend who dropped me off, but then it turned into something toxic, it turned into something traumatic. Like you were saying, one single experience. So for me to date, it's hard. I'd rather trust an Uber, public Uber, than trust, like hata uniambie uni rafiki yangu atakupeleka. It's hard for me to do that. And so you find that even in such, you share such with a friend, you share such with, and they either protect you from it, or they either keep on exposing you to it. So it's until you get to that place where you're like, hey, by the way, what nini inakuanga, like unaona kujiuliza hiyo swali, like shida yangu inakuanga nini, why am I ever in such pain, why am I ever in this with these kinds of people. It's until you get to that place that now the process and the healing journey begins.
So maybe you can just enlighten us, how did you handle that, how did you move out from it?
Number one, Jesus. Bwana asifiwe sana.
Amen to that.
I don't think, I strongly believe that overcoming trauma starts from a spiritual place, the base of it is spiritual. You cannot say ati utadil nazo huku in the natural and then sasa uanze healing spiritually. For me, I keep saying it was a heartbreak that led me to God and drew me closer to God. And God used it to draw me to him. Because now when I went through that nasty heartbreak, I thought mimi nenda kulilia Mungu juu ya vile huyu jamaa amenifanya. God umsi amefanya ABCD. And God is like, hey, okay, kuja tu, just come. So now when you get closer to God, and you see, I grew up because, you know, a father is supposed to be your, to give you a sense of identity.
Yes.
Our identity comes as children. Our identity comes from our fathers. Yes. So growing up, I didn't have that sense of identity. And my father was alive. My father was in our lives. But we didn't get that sense of identity. And we were always looking for it. Like subconsciously, unataka kufeel uko associated na someone. You want someone to own you. You want someone to say, this is my daughter. This huyu ni wangu. You cannot touch who you. So when you grow up without that, you're always looking for it in the wrong places. And for me, I would get that sense of identity in my career. So I would work so hard for the titles. I'd work so hard for at the workplace. Kwa sababu the harder you work, the bigger the title you get. So if you get a bigger title, or if you get a very distinct title, una feel, yes, now this is like my identity. And I remember one time I'd thought of, because I did communications and media in my for degree, I kept thinking, ama nifanye course ingine yenye itanipatia like a title, you know, like daktari hapa, Dr. Kamande, Dr. Esther, because I was looking for just a thing, something to identify. And the challenge is, as we're looking for our identity in all the wrong places, we should be looking for our identity in God. Yes. And so for me, just that awakening, that realization that God is the one who gives us our identity. I might not have a relationship with my father, but I have a father in heaven who has already owned me. Already, whether nilikuwa ninamjua ama simjui, God alisema mimi ni wake. So it doesn't matter what I do or who I am or who made sure I got to earth. I have an identity in God. So that awakening for me was where it all began, just getting closer to God. And you see, the closer you get to God, the more you know him. And as you're getting to know God, he reveals to you who you are. And when he started revealing to me who I am, I'm like, oh, koshua ni mimi like, oh, koshua, this is me, you know, because now he starts showing you things about yourself, and he starts showing you a version of you that is the original idea that he had about you. And that coming to that place of understanding that, nyewe, I need God. And healing comes from God. God ni yeye tu anaweza kana wewe na adil na hizo issues zenye hata wewe mwenyewe haujui. These are the issues that I've dealt with. And he starts revealing to you the root cause of it. So you start saying, oh, okay. So while I have been angry at my father and whatnot, he also went through it's all he knows. His way of parenting us and his idea of marriage was what he saw.
Yes.
And what he went through is like what he was subjected to by his parents is what they knew. So it's a generational passing on of trauma, and you get to a place sasa unafika na God unaacha kukasirika, sasa unaanza ku extend compassion to your parents, because now you end up realizing, okay, my parents didn't know what I know now. My parents didn't know what I know right now. And for me now, getting to that place where now, first of all, you have to forgive this person, and you have to forgive the people that caused you, not just from your childhood, but as a young adult, forgiving your parent, forgiving your friends, and forgiving yourself as well for exposing yourself to situations that caused you more pain, or just being the one who inflicted pain on other people. Professional help as well. The greatest lesson that I learned, or the initial place, and one of the ways that I ask people to explore first is that spiritual. So once you figure out who you are and you sort out your spiritual life and you sort out your walk with God, like wewe na God, just make sure your relationship is intact, because it is the root of everything. When Jesus was giving us the commandments, the first one was love God with all of your heart, your mind, your everything. The second commandment is love your neighbor as you love yourself. So how am I going to love Cindy if I don't love myself? That's question number one. Question number two is the way I understand love and the way I love myself is how I'm going to love Cindy. So if my perspective and my idea of loving myself is unhealthy and is toxic, then that's how I'm going to love Cindy or any other person in my life. So if at all I cannot get myself anything nice, I don't believe in treating myself, I don't believe in giving to myself, then I'm not going to do it to the people around me. So understanding who God is, understanding who you are in God, and it's only God who can tell you, by the way, this is who you are as Esther, this is who you are as Cindy, this is who you are as Maureen, and this is who I created you to be. And once he did, sometimes I used to think that now that I'm with God and I'm walking with God, sasa atanilipishia makosa zote nimefanyiwa, like sasa ni revenge mission. Revenge mission. But the thing is with God, and we were just having a conversation with Cindy off air, when you go to God with an issue, he does not deal with that person. Hakuangi ni ule wa it's not like the way in school unaenda unastakia someone kwa principal and then sasa teacher anaenda kupunish. No, God first of all anakuja na kwambia umefanyiwa ABCD, okay, bu kuja kwanza. So he begins to process those things with you. And I keep saying the greatest gift we have as believers is the gift of the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit will now come and sit with you and help you process these things. Anakuonyesha hapa, this is what is called anger. Kwa sababu kumbuka you've normalized trauma for all your life. This is what you know is as normal. And so when you're with other people, you don't know that you're dealing in a weird or in a different way. So it's until God comes and reveals to you, by the way, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. You have an anger issue, you have, you're carrying bitterness, ABCD, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it's not okay. And let me help you process and show you how to do it. And one of the ways God helps us deal with trauma, and one thing that really helped me was his word. And when the more you dive into the word of God, the more you study the word of God, the more you get to know God, you begin to realize, hey, baby, first of all, dealing with all these things is normal. Because everyone, all the characters in the Bible were dealt with trauma in one way or another. Most Bible scholars say David dealt with rejection. Moses dealt with anger. So hizi vitu it's kawaida. It's not kawaida, but it's not, they're part of life. But now the thing is, what do you do with them? You surrender all of yourself to God. So once you've figured out and you've overcome and you've allowed God to help you deal with those things from a spiritual perspective, now you can take the next step. And for me, the next step was seeking help. Talking to unajua sasa we keep saying, kwanza where I grew up or where I come from, hatuko isikia anything like therapy. And for me, growing up in school, counseling was for guidance and ilikuwa ile guidance and counseling ya shule. And we were afraid of going there kwa sababu the issues that were being discussed tuko ni unakatiwa sana, like relationship issues. So and then ulikuwa naenda if you discuss them unapata zinasambazwa.
Yeah, true.
There was no confidentiality with the guidance and counseling in school. So that was my initial concept and understanding of what therapy is or counseling. So I didn't approach life with that idea of I need to have a therapist in my life. And most of us now think therapists ni wa watu wa wame cheesy, you know, people who've gone completely insane. We didn't know things about depression. These things were not talked about frequently. And so for me now coming to a place of understanding that, oh, by the way, I can seek help. I can talk to a professional and this person is not going to sambaza my stories. Because now again, growing up, unaogopa kuongea sana kwa sababu, itakuwa the talk of the plot. So you're afraid of that. So you don't, when you're growing up, you don't want to seek professional help. Kwa sababu uko na hiyo uoga ya, what if this person discusses me? So there was seeking professional help. And it's from that place that now a professional, a therapist now takes you through the steps, helps you process it from a natural perspective, helps you understand and unpack what you've gone through. They help you get to that place of acceptance, because most of us don't accept that we grew up in such an environment, unataka tu suppress and ipotele. And also just surrounding yourself with people who are also on the same journey. I wouldn't say that there's one individual in this world that has never experienced trauma. But you will find that most of us have experienced trauma in one way or another. For some of us, we had a beautiful childhood, like in your young adulting, una go through trauma. For some of us, it's a traumatic childhood, like when you grow up, you've not experienced it. So in one way or the other, we have a form of trauma that we've been subjected to. But now the question is, what are we doing about it? So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are not intentional with their healing, they're not intentional with seeking help, they're not intentional with their own process, utabaki in that ka cycle of just dealing with the trauma. But if you surround yourself with people who are also intentional, people who are also doing the work, unapata ni kama sasa tunapeana nguvu. So you keep talking and discussing and
Awesome. Daktari, now maybe even as we come to a close, maybe you can just tell us the kind of professional help that is available for trauma. Because as Esther has said, most people don't consider seeking hospital help, you know. Inasemekananga sana if you're going to see a daktari, something that is mental, aki wewe ni wa mathare case, you know. So maybe you can just encourage someone about professional help that is available for trauma.
Just like you had asked, Maureen, and also just like Esther's based on, Esther's already covered the spiritual bit. Just as we wind up, I would actually like to say the best is therapy. Yes, I won't dwell so much on it, but we have various types of therapy that will help you overcome the trauma. But what I would like to say is, therapy is not for crazy people. See, I'm trying to makaratasi anywhere or anything. But therapy is for anyone and everyone. Why do I say that? Most of the times we have unresolved trauma. Something I would like to say is more like unresolved trauma. So what I'd like to explain more about unresolved trauma is, the best example is like burying something in the ground. When you bury something in the ground, what happens? It grows. Then all of a sudden it germinates, it grows even. So the thing with trauma, if you leave it unresolved for years, it's going to burst. At some point itafunguka, then it will be too much. It will be too much. Because sometimes it even affects our brain. So you'll find the part of your brain that is supposed to store memory or create memories inaanza kupungua because you're cutting things out of your memory, things like that. So I would really just like to say that therapy is for everyone. Find yourself, therapy is that safe place where you can say anything and everything and it's okay. And it's because as therapists, our psychologists, the counselor is bound by law to keep it confidential, unless you project that you're going to self-harm or you're going to harm somebody. That's the only time we are allowed to call to sambaza your things. But to now inform the authority na mwambia umse ako hapo, you know, even with trauma, because you can become suicidal. Na wewe unafikiria it's just normal to think at leo nitaenda nijinyonge. Maybe with time or with more examples, you'll get to understand there are people who just sit down and think, okay, venye nitajirusha nigongwe na gari, venye nitajinyonga, because of such things. But when you seek professional help, they have learned how to handle you. They have learned how to take you through. And the thing with therapy, it only works if you're ready to. If you commit yourself to it. If you identify the problem, then you're able to walk the journey. It's like having, the best I'll describe, it's like having a child and a parent. When you're holding the arm of the child, unajaribu kumdirect. That's it. It's not like therapy will give you them ati tutakuja tukwambie Maureen unafaa kufanya hivi, no, we're going to hold your hand and walk with you. So we unpack. Okay, so there is this, we unpack it. How do we go about it? There is this, you know, because of how the various forms of therapy. And just like also Esther had said, I won't touch much about it, but there's also the spiritual aspect. When you're working hand in hand with God and somebody else, the trainer, it works very well. You're able to heal, and healing doesn't just mean that nime heal. Healing also comes with the change of your action. It takes time. It's not like an switch. You know, you can't have been traumatized for 12 years, then umekuja kwangu, then 30 minutes, 2 sessions, I'm done, I'm healed, niko sawa. It's not new me. So it will take time. It will take a lot of honesty. So you come there, you're open. Nakuja unaambia mse, you know, you come there as the youth, nakuja hata kama utaongea sheng, talk to that person. Let them know I am in this place. How can I seek help? How can I get it? Because the first step is always to identify that there is a problem, then seek the help.
Great.
Thank you.
Wow, that was so powerful. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted. I know our viewers right there at home, you've found help and you've found solace. And you know that there is help outside there. And you have God who is going to hold your hand. And you have the therapist who are going to take you through that journey. So all you need is being intentional about it, right?
Yes.
And help is available. Thank you so much for always keeping it Prayer Cave TV. And I know next time we are going to still to have Daktari and continue with this conversation, because there's so much that we have not dived into. And I know we are going to get solution for somebody and know how to navigate through that issue. Thank you so much for keeping it PrayerCave TV. And until next Saturday, I've been your host, Maureen Boyani.